go. There we go. All right. Okay, I think everybody got their order in. We're going to start our program now. I appreciate everybody being here for our early spring Total Partners Luncheon meeting. We've got a lot to go over today. You have on your table a one sheet, two-sided. We're going to talk about 6 investment ventures today. 3 of them are existing and closed at year-end, and 3 are new proposed ventures that we're pursuing this year. Before I get started, I'd like to make some introductions. We have special guests here today. Mike Smith, geologist. Mike is going to discuss our Total Seismic Partners, and as you may recall, he was is the prospect geologist, and he's put together a nice PowerPoint presentation for us. And I think he's going to share some good news with us today. In addition, kind of a surprise guest is geologic engineer Mike Berglund. Mike, as you may recall, some of you that have been with us that long, met in 2009, same time I met Mike Smith, and he was the geologic engineer that steered our horizontal wells in the play that Mike found in the Lower Hunton. And about the first half dozen wells we did were with you guys in the 2009 program. So, long time. Anyway, Mike is also a participant with us in many, virtually all of the Robertson wells that we're in. And so he has specific knowledge as a professional, and I asked him to feel free to weigh in. We're going to have an open discussion today, and he likewise will contribute to that with respect to the wells that he's in. We also have a special guest today, Matt Martis, and this is a little bit different. Matt is a developer, a real estate professional, and he is going to discuss our Total Adams Creek Partners venture, which is a new development. It's really exciting. We've got a board. I'm going to let him describe the deal, but it's I think most of you are aware of it because we put information out on it. And Matt has some people with him today. I told him he's welcome to bring some of his professionals. His marketing manager, Nika Munoz, is here. She helped to get our board ready today. Phillips Breckenridge, broker with Payne & Associates, is here. Garrett Mahaney, who's a partner with Matt in Payne & Associates. We also have Daniel Cups here, partner with Eller Dietrich. He is an attorney. He's the lead attorney on the project, the Adams Creek project. And Matt thought it would be a good idea if we have any technical questions, legal standpoint, he's here today. Okay, see who I've missed here. And I don't want to call him a geologist again, but our CPA, Clay Woodrum, is here. I accidentally introduced him as a geologist about 2 meetings ago, and I got a big roar. We got the biggest laugh I've ever gotten. But he is an accountant. He's here today. We are making progress, by the way, on all of our tax returns. I think we've got about half of them done. The newer ventures take a little longer because they're the initial year. But anyway, last but not least, and this is the one person that always gets the majority of the applause, is our accounting manager, the person who sends you all your cash distributions, Teresa Molina. Okay. Now, I've got to tell you something. I forgot somebody who's sitting right here to my right, who's never been here before. This is Ann Darnaby. Ann Darnaby is the Senior Vice President for Gateway First Bank. She is also the Senior Director of Treasury, correct?
Treasury Management.
Treasury Management, yes. Which that means she's like a big dog at the bank, right?
No.
Yeah. No, Ann approached us, when was it? It's been about 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. And we had done a loan with Casey, loan officer there, on a real estate deal. Made us a loan when, this was back in the 2020, the pandemic days, when no one else would even consider making a loan. And we developed a relationship. The bank that we had been with had not provided what we thought was very good service, and they had outrageous fees. I don't want to talk about who they are, but Ann convinced us that we should make the leap. And anybody that knows business accounting and banking, there's a lot to take into consideration when you switch banks, because we have multiple banks. We have separate bank accounts on every entity. You have accounting records to think about. And anyway, she helped us through that transition over about 2 years. We moved all of her, and when was it? Just this last year that we got our final accounts moved over. And I can tell you, it has been a world of difference. The customer service that she offers, and we have real people. I want to give a shout out to Rob Spreen, who is our customer rep. Teresa deals with him almost every day. You can actually get him on the phone and take care of stuff when it needs to be taken care of. And we weren't getting that kind of service. And on top of it, we're saving quite a bit of money. I mean, it's quite a bit of money monthly on bank fees. Banks on commercial accounts they dream up fees you've never even heard of. But anyway, we've saved a lot of money. And I'm just glad this is the first time she has joined us in a meeting, and so glad you're here.
I'm humbled and flattered. Thank you.
Okay.
Very much.
All right.
Love working with Total Partners.
Okay. Let's see where we're going to start today. Well, I need to start with our promotional items. Everybody has got a pen. Now, most of you that have been here know what the pens are. They have, if you take the guard off the end, you've got a light which will literally blind somebody. If you put it in their eyes, it can be a defensive mechanism. But it also has, and I'm serious, and it has a stylus on the end, which you can use, and a lot of people don't know this. I didn't know it for a while, but you can use it. It works really well on your phone. And then you turn it, and of course, it's an ink pen. So everybody's got one of those. We also have, this is for people that want one. After the meeting, if you want one of our new hats, you're welcome to come up, and we've got some here, and you can have a hat, Total Partners hat. Okay. Okay, we're going to start with discussing Total Seismic Partners. And Mike, I'm going to ask you to stand up here with me, and I'm going to pull up your PowerPoint. See if I can do that seamlessly here. Okay, let's pull this down. Okay, I think this is our first. This is our official pointer. Yeah, there you go. Okay, and I'll change the slides when you need them. But as we've already discussed, Mike was a little history here. It was 2 years ago in April, next month, that we had our meeting that you presented this whole deal to us. And it was supposed to be, we did a seismic shoot, for those of you that aren't aware of it, which everything takes longer and costs more, just like building a house. But anyway, we're finally there. And it's been 2 years now, and we've had a lot of people along the way, partners that kind of got disenchanted or forgot they were even in the deal. But but now everybody that put money in the deal is in the deal for their proportionate share. And we have just, with the first well we drilled was a dry hole. Had a lot of more disappointed partners at that point. And since then, we hit what I'm going to let Mike talk about. And this is one that is in completion now. And Mike, take over and tell us where we're at.
Yeah, the Henderson was drilled, and it was a success based on the work we did with the seismic. We used the seismic to bring us from the 40,000-foot view down on the Earth and said, okay, now we know geologically there's a feature in there, a structure that's holding oil and gas, but we need a little bit extra help. So to bring us down closer, we went out and shot seismic, which is bouncing sound waves from the surface down on top of these structures, and we did identify one, and it worked out pretty well. And just to comment on the timing, it took a little extra because, during that time there's a shortage of workers out in the field, like a lot of places, so that kind of slowed things down. But there's one benefit for a 2-year delay. During those 2 years, I'm not sure how many thousands of more barrels of oil moved into that little structure down there.
So we can be happy that we've been getting migration into our reservoir.
So it's like a banking interest there. So we've gained a little bit more. Anyway, the Henderson was drilled to about 3,500 feet, and encountered several zones, particularly the Viola zone, which has a bunch of stacked pays in it of limestone. And this is the Henderson well that was drilled. We can go to the next one.
Yeah, this.
Anyway, this is just, if you don't know where this is exactly, the town of Asher. If we were to jump on a plane right now and go down to this, it'd be southwest of Tulsa, and not too far. And the well worked out pretty well. I mean, the surface folks were really nice, and they had been there for like 40 or 50 years and had some great stories. But let's go to the next slide. And one thing that piqued our interest real quick was while we're drilling with drilling mud. Mud goes down, helps evacuate the rocks that we've broken as we've drilled, and also brings up fluids from the formations. And it drops into this one big pit right alongside the rig, and where we break it out so we can reuse the mud over and over again. But in this case, we have oil that came to the surface out of our formation. So that was a real good sign, And next slide. Actually, you can.
There we go. Oil in the pits.
Oil in the pits.
Love the graphics, man.
When this showed up floating on the oil, I knew I was in good shape right there. Okay.
It's a potentially major discovery.
Yeah. This is. Go ahead and hit it one more time. Oops. Go backwards then. Okay. This is where the Henderson's drilled, and this is 1 square mile for scale. In blue right here are the contours, and which represent the structure that's at depth. And just to the south is another structure just like that, and we put seismic over both of these areas. This one is over a well that's made 270,000 barrels of oil. And it started back in the early 80s and still is producing just over 8 barrels of oil a day. So they have pretty good longevity on these little structures. But that's the size of this structure down to the south, and here's ours to the north. And then I'll quickly put both logs, the log that was on this well down here and the one that was up here, and that's the Olive well. And I put some color to it so we can just follow along. But anyway, right below the green is the top of our Viola, and there are several zones, the pink and the purple, and we're going down to the yellow. And the zone and for reference, that's 10 feet. So we're talking about 100 feet right here. And this is the zone that they produced from. They perforated about 6 foot, and that's what they produced from over all those years. Our well is right here, the same set of logs, including a mud log, which identifies the shows where we've got that oil on the pit, and this is showing the result of the oil coming to the surface and being registered in the mud logging trailer. But here's the zone that we perforated first, and it was right now we perforated, and it was like 2 to 3% oil cut and about 50 to 100 barrels of water. And so now a lot of that water is from the water that we shoved down in the formation to when we first perforated. So that's coming back now along with the oil, and that percent cut will keep on rising. And we're also we have 2 other zones above that in yellow. They're not perforated yet, but we'll probably come up and open up this one to go along with this one. And right now we have a pump out there, so we'll perforate this along with that, and we'll just start pumping. And we'll let that thing clean itself up, and hopefully...
That's before you would consider any stimulation on the well. Is that correct?
Yeah. Fortunately, one of the parameters 2 years ago, we're looking for zones that would would flow back, would have good permeability, so the fluids would come back to us, so we don't have to put a large cost for a frac job. And so we just perforated this thing, and that's what it's doing already. We haven't gone back and put acid on it, which cleans up the formation right on the other side of the the casing. So we can do that anytime in the future. Right now we want to let the formation flow back what it will, clean itself up, and then we'll put acid on it in the future. So we're putting a pump on it right now to get the thing producing. So we'll be selling oil next month. The Olive well that I spoke of that made the 270,000 barrels of oil, this is this production curve from beginning to current right now, and this is oil production, and like I said, 271,000 since 1983, and I've listed just to illustrate what it's producing right now. Here's at the end of 2023, it made 260 barrels for the month. Prior to that, 194, 211, 260, 251. You can see on the curve itself, it's pretty level. So that go ahead and hit that again, please. And that averages out to, one more time. There you go. It averages out so far into 2024, 8 barrels of oil a day for that well. It's been producing since '83. So another parameter that I brought forward to us 2 years ago was we're looking for longevity. And so we can create cash flow over a long period of time, let the oil prices go up and down. And since we've already spent the money to find it and we have all the surface equipment out there, we just take advantage of the price of oil at this point and just keep it producing. Next one.
Mike, what kind of initial production did this well have?
It was about 112 barrels of oil a day and about 80 barrels of water.
Okay. And so over the first year, 2 years, this well would have paid out fairly quickly, correct?
Yeah, let's put the drilling cost and completion cost, if we just round it off to, say, $600,000, and I did that for my convenience because then we can use $60 oil, well, $80 oil, subtract the taxes and everything, go back to $60 per barrel. And you can see in about, 100 days at that, you would be pretty much at that payback. So,
one thing to comment on here, we spent money on one dry hole. We spent, I think, a little over $400,000 on the seismic and on the leasing. We had geology. We had a lot of expenses there. But we're at a point now, I think our total capital structure, which is something on the front sheet, you can see here, something I didn't mention before, but we have finalized the cap table for each one of these. So our final cap table, what we have spent to date, which includes the prepayment for drilling and completion on this well, and we do have some fairly significant working capital left over at this point, but it's a $1,345,000. And if we were to make a well like this, that would be a payout in a few months, that we would have our money back from the entire development costs to date. And then going forward, of course, we'll talk about the other upside.
That's why we drilled 2 anomalies, figuring that one we should find what we want with one of them and certainly pay the whole project off several times over. So we were hoping to mimic what the Olive Well did, and so we're right on the front end of that.
How does our formation look? You showed us the logs, but most people here don't read logs. How would you characterize what our logs look like in comparison to the Olive Well?
Well, they're only a couple miles apart from each other, so it's the same formation, same type of geology, and the Viola is limestone, but in the limestone there's hard limestones, and in between the hard limestones there's these porous intervals and porosity. If you were to take the dolomites, in this case, the Olive Well was only 4 foot thick, but that porosity in there, it would look like sand. It's so porous and permeable, and so that's why it can capture and flow the oil and water out of this thing so easily.
So again, I didn't quite get it. How does our log that you say it look, and what does relative pay look like from our well to that well?
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same pay on a different feature. Down to the south on the Olive Well, you've got a little feature. It's the same dolomite. If we go north, it goes down where it's not productive. Now we're back up to the north on our feature. It's all the same formation. Matter of fact, this formation, the Viola, it exists right below where you're sitting right now in the same fashion.
Okay.
Our structure, this is on an aerial photo, and this is section 21, and here's our well that we drilled, and that's our Henderson. Just to the south here, a mile, is the Olive Well I just spoke of. But this identifies what we've found with our seismic. there's a bullseye structure right in here, and this is down dip, and this comes up even higher. This is the highest portion of it. Then you see this line right here, and that's fault. And just like if you were to take a kid's ball and just cut it right there at that point and drop it and lop off that other half, that's what we have here is half of half the moon, if you will. And so you're down on this side here. All the oils come over here and come up and been captured on this feature right here. So our first well hit here, and we have a location here that's up dip, and we have another location here and another location here. So we have 3 offsets to our well, and our well has multiple zones to produce from. So we're in pretty good shape there. We like this. Go ahead and hit that again.
Where was our dry hole?
Our dry hole was, in reference to this map here, was 5 miles to the south.
A different prospect area. We ran seismic over 2 separate prospect areas, and we ended up drilling the first one, which was a dry hole, and then we came over and did this one and made a discovery.
A quick note on why it was a dry hole. The seismic identified a structure, and if you were to turn this thing this way where the fault's on the south side, well, that fault on the south side we thought was a trapping fault, meaning all the oil that was migrating into that feature, it went through the fault zone and kept on going to the south. It goes up dip. So I'll use my hands here. If you have a structure like this and there's a fault and it dropped on down, all the oil was coming here and getting caught in this structure. And then it would continue to go to the south, but just get to even higher. So oil's wanting to get up to the highest spot. Well, we had a fault there that we thought was trapping it. And what happened was the fault didn't trap it. It allowed leakage. So over time, it leaked the oil out of our feature and kept on going to the south. So that's why it was a dry hole. It had shows in it, but it didn't trap enough oil to make it worthwhile for us to go spend money on setting pipe on it. This one, we caught the fault here was a trapping fault, had enough displacement to it so that the multiple zones in the biala were all trapping oil over a long period of time. Okay.
Next slide.
Yeah. This is a three-dimensional view of our data that we have on the seismic. And this structure, here's that structure I was just talking about. This is down dip, and as you get up to the red, that's the top of our feature. And this is the Henderson well that was drilled on the flank on the side of this feature. And then on the east side of it is where the fault is, and where it gets blue, that's where that part of that structure fell down and caused all the oil that was migrating into this just to be trapped in the yellow, orange, and red areas here. And so that's what our three-dimensional rendition of our structure looks like that we provided ourselves by shooting the seismic out here. Without the seismic, we would have drilled someplace close to this and had good shows and stuff. We'd set pipe on it and got it 2-3 barrels a day. That's not what we're looking for. So that's why we shot the seismic and found not only where this feature was, but the geometry of it, and including where that fault was on the east side. Excuse me. But I thought I'd show you and render this 3D to you so you can kind of see what we're chasing after.
A question for you, Mike. Why would we not have drilled the very top of the feature here first?
We'll go back one slide and I'll show you.
Okay.
Okay, there's, for reference, this is the middle of a section. I got to get a sip of water here. Plus, he asked me a question. I got to come up with an answer real quick. Okay. Yeah. Now, this is the middle of the section, and within any section, you're controlled by the Corporation Commission how close you can drill to a lease line or another well and so forth. And so this right here is a quarter section, and there's 330 feet to the quarter section, 330 feet. So even though we might have a lease for this and we can drill in there, we have to drill in the middle of that lease. We can't get closer to this line without suffering the Corporation Commission come to us and say that, okay, if you make a 100 barrel a day well, you can only produce it half as much. You only do 50 barrels a day. So we don't want to be compromised with our IPs here. So what you do is you have to drill within these legal areas. That's why the next well will be over here. We drilled right on the corner right here within a legal area. And this would be the high. Well, you see, this would be not a legal area. We'd have to come back here. And if we were to drill here right now with the seismic, we'd be right on that fault. Okay, well, we don't want to be drilling close to that fault. And because that's right there is kind of compromising our best efforts to make sure we stay in safe places to drill. So what we need to do is get a location exception, and we'll be moving over here. And so we'll have to apply that location exception at the commission to be able to do that. But first, we needed to have a change in condition. We have to show them why we think that that's true. So we drilled the next best location, which is right here, and that's the Henderson. And so now we have the change in condition, and now we can go back to the commission and say, we have proof there's a fault here, and we want to drill up dip at this location. And that's what we'll be doing. The second thing to this is that we had an acreage position in here that protected us from competition. And if we were to go in here and drill this first, there was competition over here that would see what we're doing, and they would be able to get into our play. So we went down here first, which allowed us to get a better position up here in acreage, and it's a chess game. Because, you go find a well out in the middle of nowhere, and it looks pretty good. You have everybody and their brothers and sisters out there trying to get a piece of it. So it was a little bit of a chess game. It worked out well. We got this. We got more interest up here. And now we can back into here with our location exception and drill the highest spot along with our offsets that all be all like that.
This is one reason that we were not able to be real vocal about what we had found. Actually, Mike and David asked me to be in a tight hole mode, which means you don't disclose anything to anybody until we went out there in the last several months. We have been leasing, and we now have pooled and spaced the offset locations, so we're protected now.
Yeah, this little thing we have in our pockets is tied into all the Corporation Commission records, all the records of independent folks that report on activities in the area. And so it doesn't take too much for someone to get on here and say, hey, someone just staked a location out here, or someone picked up some leases right here, or someone has an intent to drill already that's been filed at the commission, right here. And so everybody starts going out there and sending their landman out there to try to buy some minerals or leases in your play. And then after we did all the work here, all of a sudden we have partners built in because they're saying, hey, we want to be a part of this thing now.
Yeah, and they didn't pay for the seismic or the other geological expenses that we've had to pay for.
So we try to use our expertise to be a little bit smarter and position ourselves into the play so we can end up with all of it. And that that's the intent here. So that's just trying to be a little smarter than what we used to be, and use the gray hairs on top of my head. So.
Okay, so from what and this is something I didn't understand. I thought we were drilling the top of the structure first, but we are not. We're drilling a flank. This actually, according to the seismic, is our best location.
Yeah.
Is that the one we're going to drill next?
We'll probably come up here and drill this next because we have it set up, and we picked up all the acreage in here. So just like you thought that we would drill on the highest point, we didn't, did we? So nobody.
I just found that out.
Okay, so these folks in here won't know that that position's even better, and we already have that acreage in there now, and now we can go in and pursue that position at the same time. So it worked out for us.
So it's been 2 years coming, but we're finally there, and I think people can see now why we're excited and why it took as long as it did to get there. And in the meantime, it looks like the price of oil may be going higher in the near future. At least that's our...
Yeah, price of oil, I think it's going to be pretty level, bounce up and down 5-8 barrels for the next year. There's just a lack of there's a lack of oil that can be sent out into the market, and so I think we're in a good position here because we've spent the money already. It's easy to bring to the surface. The pumping costs are inexpensive, and so I think we're in good shape here. We found the bank below the surface.
Okay. Do we have another slide here?
I don't think so.
Is that it? No, we do. It says slide 5 of 7. Oh, no. Okay, what is... There you go. That's our other locations identified.
Eventual locations, that's our Henderson well, and then our next well, then we'll come up here, then we'll back off down here, and because all the wells are fairly close together, we'll save money on all the costs for one road to get into the locations, and all the equipment on the surface will be able to save money in using parcel one for the other as well.
What about draining the reservoir? Those two close together, we're going to drain the other?
No, they won't drain from that distance. And additional to that is we have more than one zone. We have maybe 3 zones. So each well will have 1, 2, or 3 zones. So each one will be extracting their oil from multiple zones. So it would be so we're in pretty good shape there. In this area, this is along a trend of other Viola producers, and they're all on 40-acre spacing as well. Early on in the 50s, they were on 10-acre spacing, and of course, even at 10-acre spacing, they didn't affect each other that much, but it was hard to control at 10 acres. But we're on the legal 40-acre locations, which has been designed so that you drain those 40 acres.
Do you have an estimate of what the ultimate recovery may be of these 4 wells in this prospect area? What is that?
Yes.
A lot.
Yeah. Carl Sagan says billions and billions, but no, I have one of our parameters when we put the project together was to look for lookalikes. And remember, just to the south of here, the Olive Well, 270,000 barrels of oil. We didn't know it was going to make 270,000 barrels of oil, but since 1983, but it did. And why did it do that? Is because it was in the Viola zones, which are really good about giving up its oil, and so it had longevity. So I don't know how much this will make, but I'm hoping since we have the same zones as the Olive Well, and we're in the same area, and it's on the same type of structure, that we are set up to be able to make a substantial amount of oil on a per well basis here. And because we have, we'll be putting offsets in here, we're going to have 3 more opportunities to enhance what we can get out of all 3 zones of the Viola. So I don't have a number for you, but I think we're in a position here where we're going to be real happy with the longevity and what it's capable of giving us at whatever price oil.
Okay.
I sidestepped the number, but I gave you by example what we're looking for.
Mike, do you have any comments or thoughts on any of this?
Well, the thing that I like about it and why I'm putting my money in it is because I think it's in an area, limestone is a very brittle rock, and with this faulting going on, and it's been busted up really good. So the likelihood of these wells getting close to that 300,000 barrels ultimate recovery, which I think the other well, the well you mentioned, Olive Well, is probably close to 300 ultimate recovery. I like the 3rd well you're going to drill because I think that one is probably, if there's any well in there that's going to have more gas and push, it's going to be that well. Wouldn't you agree, Mike?
Yeah, and it'll plus it's going to be the highest one. It'll have more chances of having 3 or maybe another zone below that will contribute to it.
Likely where more oil is trapped in that well versus the other 3. So anytime you can get up dip and near a fault, you're going to have better porosity and certainly better permeability, I think. And so I like it. I'm not afraid to say I think it's somewhere around 1 million, 2 barrels of oil. Counting the 3 wells on the contour line that the Henderson's on, plus I think the well at the very top of the structure is going to be better.
So again, we started 2 years ago at 40,000 feet, and now we're down to 1,000 foot above the ground. Refined it down to drilling a well and seeing what we have, and now we're offsetting those. So our comfort zone. We're well within our comfort zone. Now it's just keeping it economic, which Robertson Oil Company is one of the best operators for this type of well. So we're in great shape all the way around.
As we've discussed, or I have discussed with some of you, that we're going to go slow, monitor the production that we have, and we're going to attempt to finance additional development out of cash flow so that the people that are in the deal now will have money coming back. Should have money coming back this next month.
Well, they'll be putting into the tanks next month. And the process after that, usually with the purchaser, they'll come out and they'll purchase it. So it's another 30 days before.
So 60 to 90 days. But with flush production within a few months, we would be in a position to drill an offset, which could be before year end.
Yeah, when we establish a line of production so we can anticipate future income coming back, then that's the best time to go in and enhance that by drilling our next well. So we'll wait until that happens.
So if we were to make 1 million barrels out of this entire field, possibly 1.2 million over the life of the project, depending on what multiple you want to put on oil, if it's $100 oil, that's $100 million. Our development cost in this total is going to be less than probably $4 million. Okay. We've spent almost $1.4 million already. 3 more.
On additional wells, we won't be adding. On additional wells, we won't be paying for seismic. We won't be paying for a dry hole down to the south. So now you're back to just paying for the drilling of the well, and the drilling completion of a well out here on a per well basis may be $600,000-$700,000 total. So you're talking about a quick payback on a per well basis now. Mm-hmm. We've already put our investment into finding this thing, right. So now it's into developing it, and we're not going to be spending other monies to develop this thing.
Okay, any other questions? I just realized we've eaten up about half our time here, and we need to get moving. So thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for making the effort to be here. And thank you, Mike, for weighing in. Just a brief note here. On the back of this page is our total Osage partners. This is progress to date on the 3 wells that we have drilled and are completing now in Osage County. I'd like to make everybody aware. I put this out in a memo, but we are going to have a field trip this Friday, day after tomorrow. People that would like to go with us can meet at our offices, 49th and Lewis, and we'll caravan from there. We'll be back early afternoon. So this is a chance to go out and look at, hopefully, if you look at the progress they've made, and I'm not going to take time because we're running short of time to go through every well, but we are we're at the point where we've just about got them all hooked up, plumbed in, and hopefully by Friday they'll all be pumping. And we'll have some oil going into the tanks on this one. Also in this program, Total Osage Partners, since I didn't have any place else to put it at year end, we participated in the Chris well with Robertson, so it's included in that partnership, and we are pumping it back now. And Mike, if you have any comments, I'd like your input because I know you're familiar with that well, and you're a participant with us in it.
Well, there's about a 25-foot pay identified on the logs based on the resistivity and the just the log characters, and we perforated the top 4 feet or so and did a really light frac, and it's making more water than we thought it would, but it wasn't making any fluid at all to speak of before we cleaned it up with a small frac. So it's making 8 or 10 barrels a day, but we haven't got the pump lined up yet. So we're gonna, once we get to be able to put the pump on it and clean it up, we think the oil cut right now is 8%.
Yeah, 8 to 10%.
Yeah, I got our fingers crossed. We're thinking 25-30% oil cut, and if we can get it up to 400 barrels a day with the pump that we have on there, then it'll it'll pay out.
Yeah. So that could be 30, 40, 50 barrels a day in oil.
And chances are the water will start dropping out some, and hopefully the oil cut will increase.
And we do have water disposal facilities there in on that location. So I know David's optimistic about it.
Yes.
I think Greg's optimistic about it. So anyway, that's another well coming online now that we'll have oil in the tanks here, hopefully this month. Okay, any questions on Osage, on the Chris well? I'm going to make a brief comment on Wyoming, then we're going to move on to the new deals for this year. As you know, those of you that are in Wyoming Partners, we've been waiting for 6 months to get a drilling permit. The BLM has proved to be highly uncooperative. I think part of that is political. But we finally, as of last week, we've got our drilling permit. Glenn said they had an excellent meeting with the BLM, pre-construction meeting last Friday, and we're moving aggressively now to spud that well within the next 30 days. In the meantime, those of you that are in the deal will recall, we've got a 9,000-acre unit there with a number of old wells that were in a water flood, 14 wells. 9 of those are production wells. We have done some workovers on a couple of those. We've gotten our production up now among the production wells to about 20 barrels per day. Glenn thinks within the next year or so, working on the other old wells, that some of them are shut in, that we can get another 20, maybe 30 barrels a day of existing production on the old wells, which if we're able to do that, it'll be a nice base of operations. Plus, of course, the wells that we have, 3 of them can be utilized as disposal wells. 2 of them can be used to actually produce water, which we could use to do this will be an unconventional deal where we're using pretty heavy frac jobs, and we'll have the water there on location to do it. So that's a brief update on Wyoming. We're finally glad to get started. We're fully funded there and fully prepaid on drilling and completion. We're likewise on that one, like seismic and Osage, expecting a substantial tax write-off this year. People will be able to take an extraordinary income. That's part of our return equation. So, any questions on seismic, Wyoming, or Osage? Yes, sir.
When are we drilling Wyoming?
When?
Yeah.
Within 30 days.
Correct.
So we'll be taking the deduction for 23. So, okay. All right. I'm going to give you a quick update. People that were here at our last meeting in December, we had a presentation by the Oklahoma Royalty Group, or Red Royalty, talking about a production deal. I did visit with the principals in that deal this morning. They believe they'll have a signed PSA in place before the week's out. So we'll probably be coming back real quick with some definite. We're in kind of like a tight hole situation there. We're under an NDA. I can't disclose who it is or exactly the specifics of the deal, but it's something I think our partners are going to have a real strong interest in because it's a much lower risk profile because you're not drilling wells, you're buying existing production, and where we're buying it and what it looks like we can do with it to enhance that production with new technology, that's going to be something that from a current return standpoint, it's going to have, I believe, out of the chute 25, 30% plus annual return cash on cash from the get-go. So, and that'll be another one that'll have some tax advantage in it too. Okay. Total Stockton Partners, I'm not going to take a lot of time to talk about that. That's another Mississippi line play. And what are they targeting in the initial vertical, Mike?
The Mississippi.
That is going to...
We'll go down in the vertical.
Right.
We'll drop the bromide.
Okay.
And look at
But there's other zones in there besides the Mississippi that they think
There
might
is,
make
yeah.
a vertical well.
Yeah, there's some Skinner and Red Fork.
Something we've never done before is drill a pilot well vertically with the backup plan that if we don't hit the vertical targets, if they're not there or they're not producible, we'll shoo out from that well bore and drill a Mississippi horizontal, which we believe will be productive. So it's kind of a 2-in-1 play. We may end up with 2 new wells, a vertical and a horizontal.
or we may end up with one horizontal. But anyway, that's going to be coming late summer, early fall. Okay, now, Matt, you got 15 minutes or more. Okay, we got squeezed out here, but let's give it a try. We can run over a little bit if you need to. Here is
no
let
problem.
me get your power. Oh, we need to hand out these right here. See the video. The video is
So
definitely worthwhile. Go ahead.
Got to give Nika Munoz a lot of credit for this video. I'm Matt Martis. I know a lot of you being with Scott and Total Partners. I think I'm on my 23rd well
Yeah, right.
together with Scott. And Scott and I met each other in 2017. We acquired a shopping center that he owned in Shawnee, Oklahoma, which we still own. And we became friends, and he introduced me to what he did. And after 22 wells later, had a lot of confidence in Scott, how he treats his partners. Is the same way we treat our partners. So we wanted to work with him and Total Partners on the equity raise for this really exciting project, Adams Creek Town Center. The genesis of this project, and I don't know how to get this on that
Just
screen.
play it like that.
Well, I mean, I don't know how to get. Can you mirror that?
There you
So this is our site. It's just under 23 acres. It's currently zoned. And one of the things that we really liked about this particular property is all the infrastructure is already in place. For those of you that aren't familiar with Broken Arrow, it's one of the fastest.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was
cities.
trying to.
I got it. In Oklahoma. There's been a lot of retail development already occurred. If you're familiar with Bass Pro or Hobby Lobby or Sprouts, this is the BA Expressway, which goes into downtown. And I'll let you watch the rest of the video, which is got some good data. And I'll tell you how we arrived at this data. Try to freeze it where you can see the site. Almost got it. There you go. Okay, so we'll freeze it there. So I'll kind of just get right into the deal, Scott.
Yeah, Matt has lived and breathed this deal. This is his project, and he did it from the ground floor up. It's been over 3 years in development, and I have followed his progress, and he's talked to me about it numerous times, and I had said, hey, is there an opportunity that we might have some room for some of our partners to get into what I consider to be an institutional grade, high quality, high credit, pre-leased. I mean, this is the kind of thing that most people, most passive investors would never see. Anyway, I've got a lot of confidence, and Matt has got information and experience here that has really impressed me because it's a real talent to bring all the forces together to make something like this happen and for it to be economic. And I mean, down to the ground floor of, before he even got started, went to the city of Broken Arrow for a tax increment financing, which brings $16 million to the bottom line for this project before we even get, well, as we get started. So anyway, with that background, I'm sorry, sorry for all the technical glitches, but
No problem.
take it away.
No problem. Again, thanks for your time, and I'll try to be brief. This is a really exciting project. So Adams Creek Town Center, it's 200,000 square foot ground up retail development, and the genesis of this project, this piece of property here, we currently own and we developed a Tommy's Car Wash on. So for some of you that may be familiar with Tommy's, it's a national brand. We're their preferred developer in the Tulsa market. And as we started to build this project, which is open and operating and exists, we started to study the market in terms of demographics, psychographics, traffic, growth trends, and one of the things that jumped off the page based on our, I don't know if we can get that.
Yeah, let's get the PowerPoint. Let's get the PowerPoint up here.
The data really jumped off the page, and one of the software programs that we use, and I'm a real estate site selection guy. Some of the projects that we've been involved with in the market are the Simon Premium Outlet Mall that's currently being constructed right now. We represented them on that $160 million project and where to place it. Tulsa Hills was a project that
There we go.
assembled.
We got it. We got it now.
Okay, great.
So you can flip through it.
The
Yeah. There you go.
okay, perfect.
Yeah, got it.
That we assembled the 100 acres where Tulsa Hills currently sits now, when it was just trees, and everyone said, "What do you mean west of the Arkansas River? You think people will even go west of the Arkansas River?" Well, 1.5 million square feet later, it's been a pretty good project. And so we identified this 23 acres, and as we started to develop, let me see if I can pull a site plan up. As we started to develop the prospects for this project, which now are Kohl's, Burlington, Five Below, Shoe Station, Painted Tree, Pet Supplies Plus, and Burke's Outlet. With the exception of Painted Tree, which does not have a credit rating, all of those tenants are publicly traded and have outstanding credit ratings. Kohl's recently was upgraded. So in our business, the gold standard for us is to identify an A site and to attract high-quality national retail players to the project before you acquire the land. And so in order to do that, you have to have a competent team. You have to have an understanding of what these tenants are looking for. We do site selection for Aldi, Dave & Buster's, Planet Fitness. So each one of these tenants have a certain demographic or a certain customer base that they are going after. The average household income, for example, in Broken Arrow in this location is just over $88,000 a year. If you look at our tenant lineup with Kohl's and Burlington and Five Below, they are targeting kind of that middle market tenant. And so generally speaking, if you can place the right tenants and match them up in the right market, that's a high level for success for everyone. And the project has been very well received. We do have a $16 million retail sales tax incentive from the city of Broken Arrow. That's all been signed. It's been approved by the voters. One of the things that's unique about this project that's not commonly done in Oklahoma is we have created our own special tax district around the 23 acres. And what that means is we are going to add a 1% sales tax to every sale that's generated from this project that will be remitted back to the developer. And that's to offset any of the costs in infrastructure or site work. But when you compile that with the $16 million 2% retail sales tax incentive that we are receiving from the city of Broken Arrow, now you're getting 3 pennies of every dollar spent is coming back to the project. And in today's environment, and it really doesn't matter what tenants that you're building for, if you don't have some type of incentive, the economics to put one of these large projects together are very, very challenged with interest rates and construction costs and the rents that these tenants are used to paying in a market like Tulsa. And so we've kind of have all the key factors. First is a really good piece of property. Second is not a lot of off-site improvement. We don't have to go build streets. We don't have to go build detention ponds. All that already exists in this location. We are going to have to build one median here for the city of Broken Arrow. But all of these anchor tenants, we will have signed leases with them prior to us closing on the land in May. And we've also have 50% of, we've got about 12,000 feet of shop space. We're pre-committed on 50% of that. And then we've got 7.5 acres of out parcels available, which is kind of where the upside is in this project. So we are now starting to work with different users to try and maximize the value for each individual out parcel. Yes?
The 84% that was in your document, is that just inclusive of the anchors, not the outside, or is it both?
That's just inclusive of the anchors right now.
So the financials, it was not inclusive of the outside.
No, well, we have made some projections and assumptions on the out parcels based on the tenant demand that we currently have. So we're working with 3 tenants now for this out parcel. And the goal will be, so if you look at our financial projections, one of the things, and I'll kind of skip to that because it's why everyone's here. And this is kind of the sources and uses, but I want to get to your question, which is kind of the 5-year pro forma. So what we modeled in this was really just one tenant per out parcel. So we know we believe that we are going to be able to maximize the coverage of each parcel much greater than one tenant. But you have to make some assumptions when you put your financial model together, which I think we've been very conservative in our underwriting, which our team always is. That's one of the things that we pride ourselves on. And so after we construct the project and the project is stabilized, we believe it's going to be average around a 10% cash-on-cash return. Pre-tax would be a little bit better. After tax, but that's a long-winded answer to a great question. But we have modeled the out parcels, but only one tenant per pad.
And when we looked at the financials, when we went through the detailed financials, there was considerable upside because of that. And you were explaining to me how you're looking at multiple tenants together on an out parcel, which would maximize more square, which would increase the square footage rental and the value of the out parcels.
Absolutely, and what it also does is you maximize the out parcels because you have the 3% incentive. So the more square footage you can add, which means the more retail sales, which means you also get the 3% coming back from each tenant. And the city of Broken Arrow has been wonderful to work with on this project.
Can you discuss some of the tenants? Are you under confidentiality with respect to who you're? Because I know you've got 2 or 3 deals working on those out parcels with names that would be recognized.
Okay,
well then don't. If it's a problem, but they're names everybody would recognize. They've got deals working on the out parcels.
Yeah, generally speaking, once you start construction on the back of this project, the out parcels and the demand for those increase significantly. So we're very excited to partner with Scott on this. And
Yeah, something else I'd like to make note of. One of the things we're looking at Total Partners is to have a line of succession in terms of our management going forward. And I asked Matt if he would join me as a co-manager. So we're going to do this deal together from the investment side. So going forward, as I get closer to, I probably won't ever retire, but if I get closer to whatever, we'll still have Matt. He's to carry the torch. And I'm real excited about this because this offers, it's a different investment profile, a different investment objective than an oil and gas deal. This is more like, I'd compare it, and I've done, a lot of people may not know this because a lot of people, you know me from the oil and gas arena, but for 30 years before I got into oil and gas, I did real estate. And I've done a lot of real estate syndications. And the example that I used to give to partners when we were doing those is that this can be looked at like a short-term municipal bond because you're investing your money in something that's a hard asset that if it's rented up on long-term leases with credit tenants, it's like a bankable asset. It produces income. It will continue to produce that income, and the income will appreciate, unlike a bond deal or a long-term CD. And as it appreciates, you're getting tax benefits, you're getting principal reduction, and so 5 years from now, 3 years from now, 7 years from now, whenever that CD matures, aka the property sells, then you have a multiple on your money. Your money is appreciated. Your amortization has paid the loan down, and I believe the conservative pro forma on this shows a 2.21 on your money, so 221% cash return. Doesn't include the tax shelter benefits that you get, and in the meantime, you've got a double-digit tax sheltered income stream. So comparing it to a fixed income asset, this has got the best of all worlds, and that's what especially one like this. I mean,
that's a great way to describe it. Any other questions? Yes, Dave.
Matt, going in, is it your intent to ground lease all of the pads, or are those going to be for sale also? You guys, how do you feel about it?
That's a great question. So every national tenant has a different deal structure that they would like. To give you an example, when we did Tulsa Hills or the Walk at Tulsa Hills, Texas Roadhouse, their preference is a ground lease. Chewy's preference is for you to build their building and give them some money, and it's more of a build-to-suit. There are some tenants that only, only want to acquire the property. So what we've tried to do, and none of these have been platted, right? Currently, that's one large lot, and that's one large lot. The lot lines shown are just arbitrary. Because what you don't want to do is come in and split the lots before you know who the users are. And so our model shows a combination of both sale, ground lease, build to suit, and we just evaluate those opportunities as they present themselves. But that's a really good question. Richard?
Matt, give me a timetable. Here it is, March. We're going to invest in March. We're going to start building.
Sure.
October, we're going to start paying back. We're going to start doing what? How are you going to handle it?
So
2
we're
years of construction.
that's a great question. So we will call for funds in April, close in May, start construction in August, and it's an 18-month construction time frame, at least on the larger power center portion of the project. We will probably have out parcel users that we finalize deals with during those 18 months. When you build for national retailers, and I do want to talk about our joint venture partner, Parks Development Group out of Nashville. When you build for these type of national retailers, they are very specific on their opening windows, right? They only have certain times of year that they want to open or will open. They're not going to open in November, right? They want to be open at least by October to be ready for the holidays, or they're not going to open in February. They'll want to wait till the spring. And so you need to have a construction and development partner that understands that and is used to building this type of project throughout the country and for these specific tenants. Because when these guys tell Wall Street that they're going to open 40 stores next year and we commit to doing that, they take that very seriously. And there are penalties in the leases for you not opening on time. So that's the present schedule. We already have most of our entitlements. We've got a few site plan specific things to work through with Broken Arrow. But the plan
Matt,
would be
if
to
I-
start in August.
One thing to interject here, when we first talked about this, they had not considered putting an initial rate of return. It was going to be based on cash flow when the stores were occupied, when the project was completed. And I told Matt that I felt like there needed to be some consideration given to the equity component on the front end. So they reworked the model, and from the time that you invest, my understanding is it will be an accrued and or paid 4% annual return minimum, and that will be part of the preferential return going forward. So if it's not paid in the initial time frame, it will be made up in future cash flow and or refinance or sale. Then once it goes to operational stage, once it's completed and occupied, then the excess cash flow comes in at 85% of total cash flow is committed to the equity partners, and with a minimum of an 8% preferential is then accruing, if not paid, which has to be made up in all those circumstances. But they anticipate, based on their pro forma, that it will do, once it's operating, it'll do double digits, over 10%. That's likely going to be, it's passive income. It's going to be sheltered because of the depreciation on the property. And then as time goes forward, that cash flow can increase. And I've been through the detail on these projections with Matt. They have assumed top of the cost of interest on, in other words, they figured it at the cap. They've got loans in place with a cap and that's floating under the cap. So they're assuming the highest interest rate, and they're assuming, in the case of the out parcels, the lowest utilization. And so if you, and under that scenario, you got a double-digit yield once it's up and running. So that's where it, comparison like a bond deal comes in. But a minimum of a preferential 8% has to be made up, and then eventually, when the project is refinanced or sold, then those preferentials are if they haven't been paid, and that's where they get. So in other words, they have structured the equity component to be to provide a significant return for the risk on the equity. And something else, I had a conference call with the Parks brothers, by the way, super sharp guys, and we spent about an hour on the phone. And I asked them a lot of very pointed questions. I said, I've been through the real estate game before. What about capital calls? I mean, no. It is in the operating agreement that equity capital calls are prohibited. So this is no capital calls, which I think is another huge advantage. And you've got the protection of everything that this project's going to do has to meet those preferential returns plus 100% return of capital. So is that?
It's a great opportunity.
Yeah. Yep. So, and also these things we handed out, guys, you've seen this has been in some email reports we've sent out, but here's the investment summary right here, and it goes through those preferentials, what's paid, and this is in line with the operating agreement. So there you go.
And I know sometimes if you're not in the real estate business, like I can't visualize what Mike does because it's way below the ground. I deal it above the ground. But this is going to be one of those projects when it comes out of the ground, everybody's going to go, "Wow, did you see that?" And activity begets activity. And when you bring a large project to the market like this, there'll be tenants, and there already are, that show up that we haven't even thought about. right, that are interested in Broken Arrow. And so you're seeing it now with the outlet mall, right? For example, that project, now that it's going vertical. And so love to answer any other questions. Yes, Richard.
4% goes to 8% when it says during operating period. What constitutes operating period?
When the tenants start paying rent.
One tenant, 10 tenants?
Stabilized, right? So generally when you build a project back to what the retailers want, you'll grand open it all at one time. They'll all want to open together. And so that's what the operating period would mean. Daniel I don't know if you wanted to answer that question in the operating agreement, but
Also, and maintaining some sort of debt service coverage ratio that matches up with our loan documents.
so that would define operating. So as we get to certain debt coverage, then that kicks off the operating, which, I mean, if it's going to take 18, months to build it, we anticipate that operating period would occur, within 24 months. And we are using a higher interest rate. For example, our current financing structure is 380 points over the 10-year, which would have put it at 7.91% today. So as our rents are constant. We've already negotiated the letters of intent and leases with all of the tenants. So as rates come down, our income stream has already kind of been established. So there's upside, and nobody has a crystal ball on where rates are going to go. But we feel like we've been conservative in our projections. We've got a great tenant lineup, and super excited about it.
Pride of ownership, Tulsa, Broken Arrow. We've had a lot of people that have expressed a very strong interest in this. David, I want to give a shout out to David Hall here. David is pointing his finger at me. David and I go back to junior high school days. And David has been a real estate professional in Tulsa his entire career, and commercial real estate. He manages properties, he sells properties, he leases properties. Well, when I was doing my due diligence, part of the story here is I showed this deal to David, and David had a lot of questions, and I said, well, let's just get you guys together. And we had lunch here about a month ago. And David and Matt sat down, and at the end of the lunch, we walked out in the parking lot, and David says, wow. He said, all the years I've been in this business, I've never seen an opportunity for a ground floor, somebody, at this, to be able to get involved in a project of this caliber and of this sophistication. So David was the first one that gave me a commitment to invest, and I took that as a pretty good sign in my due diligence to have a lifelong friend who is a real estate professional that's on board. So David, now ask your question.
Thank you. Matt, I think it'd be worthwhile. How is Lowe's operating? How does that rank in their hundreds of stores? And also Target. There's your two anchors. I think that speaks pretty well of what kind of site you've got here.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons we started on the site. And in the software program we have, we're able to enter in specific tenants, and it will tell us how many visits per year go to that store. It will benchmark that store versus the other stores in Oklahoma or the submarket and nationally. And so when we were doing our due diligence, we plugged in the Lowe's and we compared it to what we know to be a very good store at Tulsa Hills and Woodland Hills. And the Lowe's data was 20 to 25% better comparatively to Tulsa Hills and Woodland Hills store, which that really shocked me, right? Because I know how well the Tulsa Hills location does. And so we did that for Marshall's. Then we confirmed with the city that the sales for these retail tenants are very high. Marshall's is doing over $12 million, which is probably top 10% in their entire chain. And so there's still a retail demand, and I confirmed with the city this morning because different tenants ask for different kinds of support. But there still is a major retail leakage in Broken Arrow. So a lot of the Broken Arrow customers, South Broken Arrow, Wagner, Coweta, this shopping center draws from a pretty large radius. they are currently going into Tulsa to shop, right? And so that's why the city of Broken Arrow, they have their own due diligence as well. So they wouldn't commit to a $16 million package if they didn't believe that that was going to pay off for them in the future. And so that's one of the reasons they've identified as well a need for soft goods. And I'll get into a little bit of the retail weeds if you care to know. But so 85% of retail transactions is driven by the female. So I may go to Lowe's, but my wife told me to go to Lowe's and pick something up, right? So when you look at the tenant mix that we have, it's primarily soft goods, which will drive the shopping decisions of the household. And that's proven data. And so the city of Broken Arrow understands that. And so when we brought together this lineup of Kohl's and Burlington and these soft goods retailers that they don't have in the market, right? And when we went to Kohl's and Burlington and Shoe Station and we presented the project, they all said yes fairly quickly. And the comment that was interesting, and Garrett and Nika were in a lot of the meetings, was we've been looking at Broken Arrow for 8 years. We just didn't have a project that we could go into. And so once we kind of got rolling on the lease up, it's gone very well. We've got a great team in place. It's going to be a really good project. It's going to be one that I think we're going to be proud of, and the pride of ownership is real. That's one of the reasons Parks has allowed us to, and I asked them if we could raise the equity here locally. I mean, we can raise the money. It's not a huge ask at $10 million, but to be able to do that locally with folks that'll be able to touch it, feel it, see the project, I think that matters. We've had success with our past investments to be able to source, I'd say, a majority, 50% of our capital with local investors. We will have some of our other folks from out of state involved, but I do want to touch on the Parks Development Group briefly, and we can make this package available to you all. But I think it's important to know who Parks is. So Parks is I think they've been in business just under 40 years. The Walk at Tulsa Hills. You guys may be familiar with this. So we put this together in conjunction with Parks in 2010. It's Hobby Lobby and AMC. This is at 81st and Highway 75, just south of Tulsa Hills. They still own this asset. It's a $45 or $50 million asset so they're already committed to Tulsa. They have a presence here, which mattered to me on who to partner with, and they care about the Tulsa market. The Oaks is a project that they still own over $1 million. I think it started at 300,000 square feet. It's larger than that now in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. But you can see the tenants, national tenants, and they built Bass Pro Shops. They built movie theaters. They've constructed for themselves and for others. And so they know what it takes to get a project out of the ground. Similar, this is Nashville West, and Garrett and I have been there in Nashville. It's an amazing project. It's got a little park in it. Remember that they so.
And they bring in construction.
They bring the construction component that, frankly, there's not many firms in Oklahoma. They can construct the project, but can they deal with the nuances of Kohl's and Burlington and how they want their space delivered? And if you're not in that business every day, and then it's very, very challenging to know what you don't know. Parks has a 500,000 square foot shopping center being developed in Birmingham, Alabama, but also other developers hire Parks to construct their projects. They built in 48 states. There's not too many people that can say
I was on
that.
my due diligence call with those guys, and I said, well, tell me about your track record. I said, what kind of vacancy are you running in all these projects? You know, and they go, we don't have any vacancy. We're 100% occupied nationwide. So
True statement. So I think that's, any other questions?
Matt will be here for people, we'll all be here for people that want to have individual questions, a little one-on-one. But if there's not anything else for the group, we ran a little over today. Yes, Mike?
Is there time to drill a well on that lot before you drill?
Great closer.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right,
Thank
thanks
you.
everybody for being here today. Appreciate your time.